Jacob Harrison stepped through the tall doorway of the Galactic Education Summit Hall. His boots made quiet sounds on the smooth floor. On his right shoulder sat a dragon. Her name was Ember, and she was beautiful and dangerous in equal measure. The dragon's scales were deep crimson red, almost like old blood mixed with fire. Her wings folded tight against her body, and her tail curved down Jacob's arm. Two intelligent eyes looked around the vast meeting room with calm interest. Ember's breathing was steady and quiet. She did not look aggressive. She did not look afraid. She simply looked like she belonged exactly where she was. The hall went silent. Hundreds of alien beings stopped talking. Scientists, teachers, and administrators from 40 different species turned to stare. A Krellian diplomat covered their sensory organs with one appendage. A Voxian elder made a high-pitched sound that meant shock or danger. The robots at the doors moved closer together, unsure if they should lock the room. Chancellor Vex moved forward. Vex was a being made entirely of crystalline structures that caught the light and threw it back in sharp angles. The Chancellor's voice came as a series of sounds like metal striking metal, sharp and cold, and absolutely certain. "Explain this creature immediately," Vex said. "All weapons are forbidden in this hall. You carry a lethal beast into a place of learning and peace." Jacob remained calm. His hand moved slowly to touch Ember's neck. The dragon's muscles relaxed even more. She made a soft sound, almost like purring, but deeper and warmer. "This is Ember," Jacob said. His voice was steady and clear. "She is not a weapon. She is my companion. She is bonded to me, and I am bonded to her." "It is a dragon," another voice said. A tall being with 4 arms and gray skin stepped forward. "Dragons attack. Dragons destroy. They cannot be trusted in places where learning happens." Ember's head turned slightly. Her eyes looked at the 4-armed being. For one moment, tension filled the room. Then the dragon looked away and back at Jacob, as if she had decided these others were not worth her attention. "Ember has never hurt me," Jacob said. "She has never hurt anyone I asked her to protect." "This is not acceptable," Vex said. The Chancellor's crystalline form seemed to grow sharper, more dangerous. "You will remove this creature from this hall now, or you will be removed both from this hall and from this summit." Jacob felt Ember's muscles tense. The dragon wanted to defend him. He could feel it in the way her claws pressed gently into his shoulder. He could feel it in the quick heat that came from her nostrils. But he did not give the command. Instead, he made a quiet sound in his throat, a sound that Ember had learned to understand. "Stand down." "Trust me." The dragon relaxed again. "I will not leave without Ember," Jacob said. His voice did not shake. "And I would ask that you listen before you judge. I have traveled far to share what humans believe about learning, about growth, about the bonds that make us strong. Ember is part of that message." Another human stepped forward from the crowd. Her name was Lisa, and she was a scientist. Then another human moved beside her, and another. Within moments, 5 humans stood with Jacob. They did not speak. They simply stood there, showing support. "This is emotional interference," Vex said. "This is not logical." "No," said Jacob. "This is loyalty. This is what I came here to teach you about. This is what I hope you will learn." Vex was silent for a long time. The Chancellor's crystalline form seemed to catch and reflect light in patterns that showed agitation, confusion, maybe even anger. But Vex was old, and old beings had learned to think before they acted. "Very well," Vex said finally. "You may stay. The dragon may stay. But if the creature harms anyone here, if there is even one incident, you will both be removed from this station and sent back to Earth in the smallest, oldest vessel in our port. Do you understand?" "I understand," Jacob said. "You will be watched," Vex continued. Every moment of every day, you will be observed. Your dragon will have sensors attached to monitor its emotional state and its physical intentions. If anything changes, you will be gone. Am I clear? Clear, Jacob said. The Chancellor turned and walked away. The sound of crystalline footsteps, harsh and sharp on the floor. Jacob reached up and stroked Ember's jaw. The dragon made that soft purring sound again. Around them, the room slowly began to move and talk again. But Jacob could feel the eyes. Everyone was watching. Everyone was wondering. Everyone was waiting to see if Jacob Harrison and his dragon would prove the Chancellor right or prove her wrong. That night, in the small room they had been given, Jacob sat beside Ember on the floor. The dragon's head rested on his leg. Her eyes were half closed, watching the door and the darkness beyond. "We have 3 weeks," Jacob whispered. 3 weeks to show them what we are. 3 weeks to show them that loyalty is not weakness. That choosing to care about someone is the strongest thing any being can do. Ember made a soft sound and closed her eyes. Jacob knew that the real test was just beginning. The next morning, Jacob entered the main conference room for the first presentation. Ember walked beside him this time, her scales catching the light like moving fire. The sensors that Vex had ordered were attached to the dragon's neck, but Jacob had cleaned them and made sure they did not hurt. Ember did not seem to mind them. Chancellor Vex sat in the highest seat, watching everything. Jacob's presentation was about human education. He talked about how humans learned best when they felt safe. How humans grew stronger through connection with others. How humans could achieve more when they worked together than when they worked alone. As Jacob spoke, something strange happened. Ember moved around him in a careful pattern. When Jacob's breathing became quick or stressed, the dragon moved closer. Her warm breath came near Jacob's neck and shoulders. When Jacob's hands moved to express an idea, Ember stepped back to give him space. When Jacob paused to collect his thoughts, the dragon made a soft sound that seemed to calm and encourage him. The other beings in the room began to notice. A Voxian scientist who sat near the front turned to the being beside her. "The dragon anticipates the human's needs," the Voxian said. "How is this possible?" "Impossible," the other being said. "Dragons are singular creatures. They only care for themselves." But it was not impossible. Ember was doing exactly that. She was reading Jacob's body and his emotions with perfect accuracy. She was responding to him with care and without being told. During the break, Chancellor Vex approached Jacob. The crystalline being was quiet for a moment before speaking. "The dragon appears to serve you," Vex said. It was not a question. "No," Jacob said. "She does not serve me. We serve each other. That is the difference between loyalty and slavery. I would die for her, and she would die for me. Not because someone commanded it, but because we choose to." "But she is stronger than you," Vex said. "She could refuse." "Yes," Jacob agreed. "She could. But she does not. That is what makes it real." Vex's form seemed to shift. The angles became less sharp for a moment. "This is a concept I do not understand," the Chancellor said. "That is why I am here," Jacob said. "To help you understand." Over the next 10 days, Jacob gave more presentations. And over those 10 days, Vex watched. The Chancellor observed the way Ember's eyes tracked Jacob's movements. The way the dragon's scales would shimmer with color when Jacob smiled. The way Jacob would run his hand down Ember's neck when he felt uncertain. And how the dragon would lean into that touch, as if giving and receiving comfort at the same time. Vex began to ask Jacob private questions in the halls between meetings. "Why do you touch the dragon so often?" the Chancellor asked once. "Because it makes us both feel better," Jacob said. "Touch is how we show each other that we care." "But this seems inefficient," Vex said. You spend time on physical contact when you could be doing other things. Maybe, Jacob said. But some things are more important than being efficient. Some things are about being happy. Being connected to someone you love is worth taking time for. Vex went silent. The Chancellor's form seemed confused, as if the answer made sense but did not fit into any logical space in Vex's mind. That night, Vex sat alone in the observation room watching Jacob and Ember through the sensors. The human was sleeping. The dragon was curled around him, using her body as a shield against the cold and the darkness. Ember did not move all night. She simply stayed there, keeping Jacob safe, and Vex began to understand that perhaps there were things in this universe that logic could not explain. The diplomatic dinner was held in the Great Hall on the evening of the 11th day. Beings from every corner of the galaxy sat at long tables. Food and drinks that were safe for each species were provided. Music played in strange harmonies that most humans found beautiful. Jacob sat with Ember beside his chair. The dragon was content to rest her head on Jacob's lap while he ate and talked with the other beings at his table. Delegate from the Sauran Empire sat across from Jacob. The Saurans were a proud species who had conquered 17 worlds. This delegate, named Crows, had been making comments all evening about human weakness, about how humans were too emotional to be trusted with advanced knowledge, about how humans could never be true members of the galactic community because they thought with their hearts instead of their minds. Finally, Crows stood up. Everyone stopped talking to listen. Humans, Crows said loudly, are nothing but children playing with technology they do not understand. Your species is weak. You are led by emotion instead of logic. You should be kept in a small corner of space until you learn proper discipline. Jacob's jaw clenched. Ember's head lifted from his lap. The dragon's eyes began to glow brighter, like fire burning inside them. Deep in Ember's throat, a growl started. It was not a sound that could be ignored. It was the sound of a predator deciding whether to attack. Every being in the room moved away from the table. Alarms began to sound. Security beings moved toward Jacob, but Jacob did something that shocked everyone. He reached down and placed his hand on Ember's snout. The dragon's scales were hot now, almost burning. Her muscles were bunched and ready to strike. Jacob leaned close to Ember's ear and whispered, something that no one else could hear. His voice was calm. His touch was gentle. Ember's growl stopped. The dragon's eyes cooled from bright fire back to their normal intelligent gaze. She put her head back down on Jacob's lap. Her body relaxed. Her tail curved around Jacob's feet. The dragon had chosen to trust Jacob's judgment instead of her own protective instinct. The room was completely silent. You see, Jacob said to Crows, his voice quiet but clear enough for everyone to hear. Ember is stronger than you. Physically, she could tear you apart. But she did not attack because I asked her not to. She trusted my wisdom over her own desire to defend me. That is loyalty. And it is not weakness. Jacob looked at Chancellor Vex. This is what I have been trying to teach you, Jacob continued. Humans love each other. We bond with each other. We trust each other with our lives and our safety. You see this as weakness because you do not understand that choosing to limit your own power for someone you love is the strongest thing any being can do. A dragon does not need permission to kill. But Ember chose to stand down. She chose to trust me. That is real strength. Security beings slowly stopped moving. The alarms quieted. The other beings at the tables began to sit down again. Crow sat down too. But there was anger in his posture. That night, Chancellor Vex requested a private meeting with Jacob. When Jacob arrived, Vex was standing by a window looking out at the stars. When I asked you why the dragon obeyed, Vex said, you said it was because of loyalty and love. But I did not believe you fully. Not until tonight, And now? Jacob asked. Now I understand that I have been wrong, Vex said. About many things. The dragon could have killed that delegate easily. You could not have stopped her with physical strength. But you stopped her with something stronger. You stopped her with trust. With love. Vex turned to look at Jacob. This is not a weakness in your species, the Chancellor continued. This is a strength you have that we have lost long ago, if we ever had it. The explosion happened in the central core room on the afternoon of the IRM. 18th day. Jacob was leading a group of young alien delegates on a tour of the summit's power systems. Beside him walked Ember, as she always did. The Chancellor had stopped objecting to this. In fact, Vex had begun to observe the two of them with something that might have been admiration. There were 5 young delegates in the group. They came from different worlds and different species. One was barely old enough to be called an adult. All of them were curious and excited to learn how the station worked. The sound came first. A deep, terrible grinding sound that seemed to come from the very walls. Then the room began to shake. Equipment fell from shelves. The lights flickered and went dark. Emergency lights came on, painting everything in red. Core malfunction, a mechanical voice said from the speakers. Toxic energy release in progress. All personnel must evacuate immediately. Jacob could hear the hum of the dangerous energy. He could feel heat building in the room. The young delegates began to panic. They ran toward the door, but it was blocked by falling equipment. Jacob moved fast. He gathered the 5 young beings and pulled them toward the deepest corner of the room. The toxic energy was coming from the opposite direction. If they stayed low and away from the main flow, they might survive long enough for rescue to come. Stay together, Jacob told them. Stay low. Keep your heads down. The energy began to pour into the room like liquid fire. It burned everything it touched. Metal melted. The walls glowed with heat. The young delegates cried out and pressed close to Jacob. Jacob did the only thing he could do. He used his own body as a shield. He lay across the young beings, using his human body to block as much of the toxic energy as possible. His skin burned. His clothes began to melt. The pain was beyond anything he had ever felt. But he did not move. He did not run. He simply stayed there, protecting the young beings who depended on him. Then, Ember did something incredible. The dragon moved into the energy flow. Her natural scales were different from human skin. They were made to withstand extreme temperatures and toxic substances. Fire did not harm her the way it harmed humans. Poison did not kill her the way it would kill other beings. Ember positioned herself between Jacob and the worst of the energy. She absorbed the toxic heat and radiation that would have killed him. She did not hesitate. She did not ask why. She simply acted. Rescue vessels arrived within minutes. Security beings in protective suits rushed into the room and pulled Jacob and the young delegates to safety. But Ember would not move until she was sure Jacob was secure. In the medical center, Jacob was treated for severe burns. But because of Ember's protection, his injuries were not fatal. The dragon had taken the worst of the damage herself. Vex came to see Jacob as he was recovering. The Chancellor stood in the doorway for a long moment. The dragon was more badly hurt than you, Vex said. She absorbed the radiation so that you would survive. Yes, Jacob said. She knew this would harm her. Vex continued. Yes, Jacob said again. But she did it anyway. Vex said. Yes, Jacob said. Because she loves me. Because my life matters more to her than her own comfort. That is what loyalty truly is. It is not about logic. It is not about what you gain. It is about choosing to sacrifice for someone you love. Vex turned away and looked out the window at the stars. I have led the Galactic Council for 200 years, Vex said slowly. We have always believed that emotion was a flaw. That loyalty born from love was weakness. But I was wrong. Completely wrong. The Chancellor turned back to face Jacob. What you and Amber have shown us over these days is something precious, Vex said. Something rare. Something we have forgotten how to value. We have made a grave mistake in how we have judged your species. The closing ceremony took place in the Great Hall. All the delegates and administrators of the summit were present. Jacob walked in beside Amber. The dragon was still recovering from her injuries, but she walked with her head high. Her scales still shone like fire, even though some of them were scarred now from the radiation. Chancellor Vex stood at the highest point of the hall. The crystalline being's form seemed to glow with unusual light. When Vex spoke, the entire room went quiet. We gathered today to conclude the Galactic Education Summit, Vex said. But something more important has happened here. We have learned a lesson that has been forgotten in our great libraries and lost in our logical systems. Vex gestured toward Jacob and Ember. This human and his dragon have taught us what true strength is. Not the strength of weapons, not the strength of numbers, but the strength of choosing to care about another being more than you care about yourself. The Chancellor stepped down from the high platform and walked toward Jacob and Ember. The movement was unusual. Vex rarely moved toward others. Most beings stepped back when Vex approached. I ask your forgiveness, Jacob Harrison, Vex said. I judge you and your dragon as dangerous and weak. I was wrong on both counts. Your species possesses something rare and valuable. You have the capacity to love deeply and to remain loyal even when it costs you everything. Vex turned to address the entire room. The Galactic Council must change how we treat humanity, the Chancellor said. We've been afraid of your emotions. We have seen your willingness to sacrifice as a flaw. But we were mistaken. Every species in this room values survival. But humans value something additional. You value love and loyalty above your own well-being. This is not weakness. This is the highest form of strength. This is what the galaxy needs to survive and to grow. The other beings in the room began to make sounds of agreement. Some made them with joy. Some made them with sadness, realizing what they had lost when they abandoned their own capacity for love. Jacob reached up and scratched behind Ember's horns. The dragon made that soft purring sound that Jacob loved so much. The sound of contentment. The sound of a being who was safe and cared for. Later, as the ceremony ended and beings began to leave, Vex approached Jacob one more time. What will you do now? The Chancellor asked. I will go home, Jacob said. I will tell my people that the galaxy is beginning to understand us. That change is possible. That loyalty and love are not things to hide or be ashamed of, but things to celebrate. And Ember? Vex asked. Ember stays with me, Jacob said. Always. The dragon leaned her head against Jacob's chest. Jacob wrapped his arm around her neck. They stood together like that, human and dragon, showing the universe that two very different beings could love each other with complete honesty and complete trust. Chancellor Vex watched them from a distance. The crystalline being's form seemed less sharp now, less harsh. For the first time in 200 years, Vex felt something that might have been hope. Perhaps the galaxy could learn to value love again. Perhaps understanding could come. Perhaps humanity's greatest strength was not something to fear, but something to learn from. And it had all begun when walked into a hall with a dragon at his side and refused to be separated from the one he loved. The colony alarm clock rang at 6 in the morning. Colonel Daniel Hayes heard it through the metal walls of his quarters and opened his eyes. He had been awake for 10 minutes already, thinking about the day ahead. This was normal for him. His mind never really stopped working. Daniel, dressed in his gray colony uniform, and stepped into the hallway. The metal corridors of Human Colony 7 were clean and cold. The lights were bright white. He could hear the sound of the water recycler running somewhere deep in the building. Everything worked. Everything was controlled. This was how humans survived here, at the edge of the Calthrum Galactic Dominion territory. The colony had been here for 3 years. In that time, Daniel had learned something important. The Calthrum did not care about humans. They watched them, yes. They recorded everything. But they did not interfere. The humans kept quiet. They worked. They did not cause trouble. This was the agreement, spoken or not. Daniel walked to the command center. The morning shift was just beginning. Captain Marcus Green sat at the communication desk, looking tired. Behind him, screens showed data from all over the colony. Temperatures, oxygen levels, water supplies. All normal. "Morning, sir," Marcus said without turning around. "Morning," Daniel replied. "Anything unusual?" "No, sir." Quiet night. The Calthrum station sent a routine message at 0300 hours. "Just checking on the water samples we sent up yesterday." Daniel nodded. The Calthrum wanted to know everything about this world. They studied the colony like scientists studying insects. Daniel had learned to live with this. It was the price of survival. He moved to the observation room. Large windows looked out over the colony grounds. Beyond the electric fence, the land was wild and green. The planet had rich soil and clean air. It was a good place for humans. If you did not think about the things that lived in those forests, the colony buildings were arranged in neat rows. Housing units, medical center, food production, science lab, power station. Everything a human colony needed to survive far from Earth. Daniel looked at each building, checking them like a parent checking on sleeping children. One of the children was actually awake. Lucy Hayes stood at the eastern fence, looking out into the trees. She was 8 years old. She had dark hair and wore a yellow colony shirt that was too big for her. Daniel's chest tightened when he saw her. He had adopted Lucy 4 years ago, after her parents died during the transport journey from Earth. He had no children before that. He had no family at all. But Lucy needed someone, and he was the commander, so he had taken her. It was one of the best decisions he had ever made. It was also one of the most terrifying, because children did not understand danger. Children asked questions. Children did things that made adult hearts stop. Daniel left the command center and walked to the eastern fence. His boots made quiet sounds on the hard ground. The morning was cool. The sun was rising over the trees, making everything gold and red. "Good morning, Lucy," he said when he got close. Lucy turned around. Her face was bright. "Good morning, Dad. I was watching the animals." "What animals?" Daniel asked. He knew what animals. He had read all the reports. "The small ones. The brown ones. They live near that tree." Lucy pointed. "They are very fast." Daniel looked where she pointed. He could see movement in the grass. The creatures were there. The colony had given them a nickname. The humans called them death badgers. They were not badgers. They were something unique to this planet. Small, with fur the color of dried blood. Fast and deadly. They hunted in packs. They had killed 17 colony animals in the 3 years the humans had been here. Every time a human went outside the fence, the death badgers watched. They did not attack humans, but that was probably only because humans stayed in their protected areas and the badgers were not stupid. "They are interesting," Daniel said carefully. "Can I go watch them?" Lucy asked. "No," Daniel said. "We stay inside the fence." "But they are not doing anything bad," Lucy said. "They are just living." Daniel put his hand on her shoulder. "Yes, they are living their life. And we live our life. We stay separate. That is how everyone stays safe." Lucy looked sad for a moment. Then she nodded. Okay, Dad. Daniel led her back to the housing unit. Inside, they ate breakfast together. Sarah, the colony cook, had made eggs and bread. Lucy told him about the plants she was growing in the colony garden. She had tomatoes and lettuce. She wanted to try growing corn next. She talked about this with the serious focus of a scientist. It was one of the things Daniel loved most about her. She was curious. She wanted to understand things. That is good, Daniel said. Keep learning. Lucy smiled at him. Will you come see my garden today? I will try, Daniel said. But I have work. You always have work, Lucy said. It was not rude. It was just true. Daniel had no answer for that. The day moved forward like all days in the colony. Meetings about food supplies. Reports about the water systems. A discussion with Dr. James about the soil samples they were testing. Everything was normal. Everything was planned. Everything was controlled. At 1800 hours, Daniel sat in his office and watched the daily status report. The Calthrum station above sent a message through the communication system. It was routine. The humans remained contained. The colony was stable. No threats. No problems. The translation came through in clear English. Excellent work, Colonel Hayes. Your colony remains a model of human compliance. The Dominion remains pleased with your management. Daniel saved the message. He would file it with all the others. One more day. One more confirmation that his choices were correct. That keeping the colony quiet and obedient was the right path. That night, he went to check on Lucy before she slept. She was already in bed, reading a book about Earth animals. She had read it so many times that the pages were soft. Good night, Lucy, he said. Good night, Dad, she said. Will you tell me about the badgers tomorrow? The real ones? About where they come from? Daniel felt his throat tighten. Maybe, if I have time. You should make time, Lucy said. It was something he had told her once, long ago. She remembered everything. Daniel touched her forehead and left the room. Outside, in the darkness, the colony was quiet. The lights glowed. The fences hummed with electricity. The death badgers moved through the forest, hunting and living their lives, completely unaware that tomorrow would change everything.